basically he's saying, hey, focus on the student, focus on the problem. Do not deploy technology for technology's sake, or that you have to find the problem, focus on solving real problems with the student experience, both in the classroom and outside the classroom. CIOs have a crucial role in ensuring technology serves students, not the other way around. Hello, welcome to Generation AI, where we demystify AI through the lens of higher education. Joining me today is my co-host, JC Bonilla. It's been almost 2 weeks or a week and a half since we haven't seen each other. We were together at ASU+GSV, and then you go on vacation, and I don't see you for a whole week.
I do get that time off. So hi everybody, welcome back to us recording. It's been 2 weeks, as Ardis mentioned, and we had this opportunity to prepare for this time off that was coming. Ardis was off, then I was off, so we kind of did this, I guess, repackaging of ideas. Then we came to San Diego. We're gonna be talking about that. But Ardis, it feels a little like I'm rusty. I don't know how you feel. Like, are we able to dance again? Is this going to happen? I don't know. It feels like it's been a while since we've recorded. Do you feel the same way? Is it just me?
2 weeks, man. It's not that long.
It feels like it's been 2 years. I guess my timelines for recording are very AI forward. So it's good to see you, my friend. And yes, great opportunity to spend almost, what's it, like 4 or 5 days with everything that has to do with the intersection of AI and education, right? So the EdTech sector, AI meet for about 4 weeks, and also a bit of the financing behind it. So my first time, this is like what, your fourth time?
At ASU+GSV, yes.
Yes. So today we're going to be talking about that, and it's a really, really exciting time because, as I said, my first time, and I was blown away with how all these things come together, Ardis.
Yeah. So just for everybody, is to orient everybody, this week we're going to really dive into some of the insights from the recent ASU+GSV Summit and the AI Revolution show in San Diego. Last week, we released an episode that JC and I did with Lev Koenig from Arizona State University. We goes into some of the ideas of what they're doing at ASU and how to think about AI. But the ASU+GSV conference overall, it really brings together thousands of leaders that think about the biggest forces reshaping higher education today. And obviously, artificial intelligence is at the center of a lot of that. And the conversation was very topical, and it's even amplified. So we heard from top university presidents there, tech executives, and a lot of innovators and startup founders on how AI is really changing everything for education. But today we'll focus on kind of two key areas, right? So the powerful ideas that really they're shared by those leaders, and how to navigate AI, how to navigate education overall and education institutions in the AI area. And then the significant shifts that are happening in the business world today, specifically the trend in company consolidation and some of the investments within EdTech. Because if you remember, the conference brings in a lot of investors and EdTech founders as well together. So a lot of that, we're going to take a look from that perspective as well. Sounds good, JT?
Sounds good. And before you jump in, for all those of you who are new, like me, for the past 10 years, Arizona State University, ASU, and Global Silicon Valley, GSV, have been doing this platform that supports, as Ardis was saying, the investment side in education, workforce skill innovation. And it's full range, Ardis, from pre-K all the way to higher education. And it was an incredible endeavor. So let's jump in and let's start talking about the trends and kind of what we saw, the topical areas of interest in the past 5 days. So let's jump in.
Yeah. So the first we're going to focus on, look, there is kind of some of the thought leaders and conversations that were happening on stages and on the presentations. There was just a lot of excitement at ASU, obviously around technology, but it was all backdropped by some real challenges that people were talking on higher education. There is the declining public trust in higher education. There's a lot of cost pressures. There's the need to kind of prove that value. And even the ASU leadership spoke, but they spoke of this technology driving as the AI tsunami, right? And they're urging institutions to adopt quickly. And one of the things that we can go over here, JC, is kind of pick and choose some of the topics on those voices who offered some of the guidance during the show. We weren't able to attend all the different sessions, but we were able to kind of compile a few of the highlights as well.
It's a massive parallel track. So as Ardis mentioned, it will be impossible for all of us to be there. Also, very importantly, Element was there, and we'll have the opportunity to talk about what we were doing, because I think that if there's a generalization on the voices, there's no need for evangelization of AI. I think that I every leader that was there, they already basically have, from my opinion, artists, they are over the lip on, is this thing real? It's not a hype. It's not a myth. It's just basically the how, right? AI, mystical AI, was not a conversation that I witnessed, that I heard, or was part of a panel or a conversation. Literally, is the operationalization, the deploying of AI in all the different pain points that it brings, if you will. But I thought I was expecting a bit of the skeptics showing up, and it was not the place for that.
Yeah, it's absolutely not the scam, and it was not that at all. So one of the things that I'm going to go through a few kind of topics and people then and how they're talking about it. So Edward Watson at AACU, he really stressed this idea of really the workforce. It's all about the workforce. It's all about the ROI, the workforce and delivery. So he stressed the idea that AI means huge job change, not just job loss, right? And we've been talking about this idea of how do we now move from thinking about job displacement and job loss, but also the opportunity that AI brings and kind of what is required, to kind of change. So and he argued that higher ed must pivot its curriculum now to teach AI literacy and higher order thinking skills, and really warning against this ineffective bans and flawed detection tools and so on and so forth, right? So it's all about adopting the AI for pedagogy and not prohibiting it. And we also saw the same thing during AI Revolution Show or the Air Show, where last year there was a lot of detection tools, AI detection tools, and so on and so forth. This year there was almost none of those in the show as companies or new tools. So I saw that as a big change.
I love that we're kicking off with this, because in an AI conference for education, everyone's going to go into the pedagogy, the teaching component, and it was a topic. But the fact that digital workforce, it's a conversation, the opportunity that it brings, or the conversation that many leaders were starting about, I think depicts the right way that AI is landing at these highest levels of institutional leaders. That's a really important distinction, Artists. The majority of the attendees, or a large part of the attendees, are really high level leaders within higher education. We're talking about presidents, we're talking about in K-12 systems, we're talking about chancellors, superintendents, really, really, really incredible talent. And they're thinking about what does it mean for them to start working differently. And the word that I want to bring up that summarizes what you said, for me, is that there's an opportunity, and it's really AI. If we speak about replacing jobs, right? There's the aspect of I can be amplified and staff augmentation. So this idea of AI augmentation in the workplace, heard it loud and clear through the panels I was part of. I heard you speaking about it, and many of the leaders. It was great to hear leaders saying, you know what? It's not about getting rid of these counselors or getting rid of these teachers, these faculty members. The idea that they're not able to keep up with X, so now I have an opportunity, and AI augmentation was part of the conversation. So I was really, really excited that it came that way as one of the big voices.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's opportunity in chaos, right? And this the Ted Mitchell from ACE, he really framed this kind of the current disruption as productive. It's a productive moment to rebuild new. So it's really this idea that refocusing on student success metrics, and he called for institutions to collaborate on their own and own their data to kind of reshape their AI future rather than letting big tech dictate terms, which is really, really interesting, right? Because if you think about it, is like, the higher education traditionally has driven technology, internal technology, but they just can't compete with the big guys. So it's about the data, and it's about kind of the written, the driving results and the student success by owning their own data, which is really, really interesting when you think about where we were maybe a decade ago, or even over the last decade, when big advertising companies like Facebook and Google, like, we just couldn't compete with those, right? Now, coming back full circle, it's like, own your own data.
One of the complementaries to what you're talking about in terms of the opportunity and the chaos, that kind of messiness and the opportunity that he brings, right? I experienced it by walking through the showcase of vendors that represented technology. I don't know, Ardis, if you felt that there was a shift from classical LMS and how, AI touches curriculum development. That was there. But such an important present of student outcomes in AI. So thinking about technology that supports placement, technology that supports any metric of success, whether it's financial, whether it's persistence. I thought that was a very healthy display of opportunity, because that's chaos. If anything, is one of the areas, in my opinion, where innovation hasn't hit, and seeing the small firms, the startups trying to, I solve the problems of higher education or K-12 through the lens of AI, right? But that aspiration was very, very important. So if we measure the amount of technology that is being built to solve these problems, there's a significant presence around solving student success, in that it's different. And again, we know that AI kind of has that vibe, but it was great to see it on the hallways and in the booths that are being represented on the technology there.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you mentioned smaller startups and kind of pushing and solving the higher education. I mean, Paul LeBlanc, kind of weaving into that. Paul LeBlanc, for those of you who don't know, it's one of the thought leader in higher education
Hmm.
and driving SNHU to kind of the massive institution that it is today. He kind of talked about real innovation emerges from institutions not weighed down by tradition or massive endowments, kind of taking a jab and a nod to the larger institutions and saying that smaller, agile colleges are true pioneers of AI driven disruption. So it's basically like a call to action saying that, hey, what we did at SNHU is very, very relevant to a lot of people, and they took a very direct approach to it. So what we're going to need to do is focus a lot on, you know, those smaller institutions. So there's, keep focusing on it. Now, mirror that with some of the larger, one of the largest institutions, and kind of
Or
Lev's
the
going,
host.
or the host, yeah, at ASU. So Lev said that AI's rapid integration must remain human centered, right? And obviously we had a whole conversation with him during our last episode. So go, if you haven't listened to that, go ahead and listen. Some really, really insightful stuff. But he said that CIOs have a crucial role in ensuring technology serves students, not the other way around, right? So it's basically, he's saying, hey, focus on the student, focus on the problem. Do not deploy technology for technology's sake, or that you have to. Find the problem, focus on solving real problems with the student experience, both in the classroom and outside the classroom. And that's how you're supposed to think about it. And CIOs should look at this from a experiential perspective rather than from a technical perspective or a systems perspective. It's no longer the job of the CIO to think very closely about, guarding this technology footprint. It's about how can be an enabler and sharing and enabling experiences and new workflows that are happening throughout campus.
And artists, from the point of view of Lev, thinking about ASU being the North Star, right? Not only the host, we need to admit that they've been going at this for longer than many of the
Correct.
players.
Correct.
And it's a really important distinction that, all right, the role of the CEO emerges differently, but it was very clear to me, and please go ahead and listen to our interview, that ASU is leading in three specific deployments of AI through the academic integration, definitely thinking about how AI empowers curriculum, personalized learning, faculty engagement. And many times CIOs are not putting that kind of academic curriculum hat or personalized learning, right? So they're just the systems people, right? So it's interesting that now the CIO, the CTO will have that blurred in the roles, right? At the same time, research and innovation, right? So it's very clear that ASU in its partnership with OpenAI, it's doing incredible things in research centers, AI acceleration, and obviously it was a fascinating conversation for us in Lev to hear how they're doing operational transformation and how they're trying to bring this kind of administrative efficiency, and their bold investment on infrastructure, right? Without that infrastructure and the tooling, they probably will not achieve it. So it was a great conversation. So the North Star, it's there through this operational aspect, academic aspect, and research. But it's lovely that Lev recognizes that the human angle wrapping around this ecosystem is probably one of the keys of success. And we know that it's an important one.
Yeah, and JC, by the way, I mean, if you think about it, but there still exists a gap, and we're seeing it. So the reason why there's this immediacy, or there's this, hey, you got to act now approach, is 57% of institutions see AI as strategic, but only 14% of faculty feel ready, or even the administration, or even the people who are teaching in the classroom or supporting the students. So bridging that divide is so important. First of all, 50%, like that should be 100%. So I'm not sure, what the other 43% are thinking, but that should be, that should be something that pushes things forward. And Michael Hansen from Cengage, he actually delivered a really stark warning saying higher education must integrate AI and meet workforce skill demands, or risk losing relevance in the area, prioritizing skills over traditional degrees. So we kind of circle back on this, right? It's like, how does AI actually fit in here? And again, if we listen to all this, the common thread here is AI. The power of AI is undeniable. It offers huge potential, but every leader stressed that the need for caution, ethical frameworks, keeping human needs, kind of student success, equity, critical thinking should be at the center of it, right? So it's really a race to adoption, but no one needs it needs some careful navigation, but at this point, it is really a race to adoption. We're too cautious and too careful, and we're kind of still going slower. And the adoption is going to take, half a decade to a decade, but at the rate of the trajectory that we're going, we're not fast enough.
You and I had the opportunity to be in a breakfast with 30 plus presidents of some of the most interesting independent colleges. So think about small colleges, liberal arts. And the context I want to provide here is, as you've kind of walked the floor, these are presidents that are managing usually top-notch teaching and really high experience academically. And AI, it's the fourth strategic agenda that has showed up, right? So many of them right now are worried about, I don't know, what happens with this grant that I lost, right? And then they're losing $80,000. That's a big deal, right? But they're also worried about, I don't know, how I'm going to be deploying a library, right? And they need to, fundraise, and they need to teach. They do it all. But AI, it's one of the things that right now they wake up and they think about, how do I deploy this AI agenda? And the things that you just mentioned, hearing them talk about, it has to hit academics, research, if I have it right from a small school's point of view, and it has to hit student experience. It has to support outcomes. It has to empower my academic deployment, my administrative engine, and it has to be done with these frameworks of equity, inclusion, good governance. So it's a big effort. And what the thing that I walked away from is, of course, some of them are new to the subject area, but it's not the idea of, oh my gosh, what am I going to be doing? It was literally going there and hearing from these leaders, these voices, and all right, this is what it means to me, and then taking it back home, whatever that is, and deploying. So I guess my punchline in these voices that you just mentioned, from the point of view of innovation, inclusiveness, equity, integrity, governance frameworks, all that kind of stuff, it felt like check, check, check. Oh, that doesn't apply to me. The next one, and they had some ideas to walk away from. Did you feel that way when you were in that session? That presidents were not unprepared, but ready to be sponges and understand how to take it back? Did you feel that way, or was it my table in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of questions around, hey, I need to take this beyond just this one component, and
Correct.
I need to adopt it across. So yeah, I did have exactly the same conversation. So now it's about how do they adopt it? It's not like, hey, we have our policies, we need to get our teams ready. Now it's about like I got asked over and over about impact, impact, impact. Like how does this impact productivity? How does it impact the student experience? So they're thinking about it, but there's just there's just not a lot of stuff out there that is, available, to be honest. I mean, then that's on my panel. So I had a panel as well. And one of the questions is, why are people not adopting this? And the answer is, hey, there's just no applications right now. Like the applications are still getting figured out. So there's just not a lot of great solutions out there. And that kind of goes into, well, aren't all of these AI, startups popping up left and right? And the answer is sure, but higher education is traditionally left behind or slower because it's not the large, it's basically a laggard in technology adoption. And also it's not the biggest market. So when you think about AI, AI, introducing AI, or you think about the opportunity of AI, like why would somebody invest in building a company in for higher education specifically when they have much bigger opportunities in other markets where they can grow a lot faster and they can do that. So kind of goes in kind of that trajectory. And maybe we should kind of switch to our second part is like the economics of ed tech, first of all, and like what we're seeing in the market and what we heard during the show as well.
Yes, yes. Because the conference brings the these two worlds of basically the funding mechanism. As we unpack this, start thinking about, all right, if higher education, if K-12, it's lagging, right? It's maybe two, three steps behind the cutting edge. This is basically the funding that probably is unlocking these 2 or 3 steps ahead that we're talking about. So it's a it's an environment of consolidation and investment, right? So let's start talking about what we saw here. I was very, first of all, I just want to paint a picture. This is the first time I really see two different humans interacting together. I haven't experienced this, right? I've been in higher education for the longest time, artist, but I have never seen the educator, right, who I actually belong to, and I know what we look like and I know what we dress like, but the banker, and
Yes.
these two worlds. I mean, it was a really interesting mental picture. Everybody, think about the traditional person who is going to have a portfolio of billions of dollars, basically, that pushes technology on campus 5 years from now, 10 years from now. They were there commingling the good and the bad of that, being front and center. It was a beautiful picture.
So what's the financial pulse, JC, when you think about this, right? We're talking about education is an amazing big market. So the global education market is massive. It's supposed to be about $7 trillion, but we haven't really seen an edtech company break above 20 billion mark yet. Do you think AI is going to change that?
To your reference, you're talking about the Coursera's, the
Right. We're talking
Udemy,
about
right?
Yeah, exactly. Coursera's, the 2U's, you were talking about Chegg, like all of the
The
big, yeah.
big, the biggest we've seen, right? So your question is, can AI change that? Oof. I mean, I don't know if it changes, and the reason why I do continue to see a fragmented campus or system, because we're talking about educational systems, right? And that siloed and regionalization, it's a really interesting thing. So what does that mean? If there's a technology that can do it all, look, artists, think about it from the point of view of where we stand in Element, right? We dominate the conversation about how students' success engagement through the lens of admissions, admissibility, getting them started, and then carry them through, right? That's just a part of the whole ed tech sector, right? So there's no unifying technology that does it all. There's no Google that supports 80% of the use cases of corporate America. So I did not see that technology, and as such, I don't see the funders or the bankers looking for that technology. They're still looking for silos. And verticalization for me was a thread that I saw bankers trying to get. Oh, you're the guys who do this. You're the guys who do that. You support, personalized learning. Are you the guys who are doing these kind of new, very interesting things and agents for, I don't know, parking lots? I actually did hear that, and it was a really interesting conversation. So, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, look, so what I heard at JC was an interesting kind of trend. Essentially, we're seeing this perfect storm for mergers and acquisitions. There is perhaps favorable market conditions, and then a lot of interest in AI-driven innovation. And that like the private equity firms like they have a lot amounts of capital right now that needs to be deployed, and that hasn't kind of stopped. And there is a consolidation play that's happening. So what you see from your perspective is, yes, there's a lot of vertical piece of solutions, but we're also seeing that those vertical solutions cannot compete with a end-to-end system because the primary
Exactly my point. Yeah.
driver of exactly. So yeah. So the primary driver for all this data that you have, because AI fundamentally is driven by the context. The better data you have, better history, the better, the more data, like the more of that richness and context you have, the better, results there are. So having vertical solutions can't necessarily live by themselves. So where you're seeing is that they have hit a lot of those vertical solutions that have hit a ceiling, and now the only way is to consolidate those. So we're seeing a lot of those conversations in the market right now. Of course, with private equity having a lot of dry powder in there as well, and kind of driven and looking for the AI powered solutions. Of course, Element was part of that,
We're an example of that
investment. Yeah,
verticalization. Yeah.
exactly. We're part of that example, with PSG investing in Element this past year, and this was the first ASU after that, and I was getting a lot of conversations and a lot of questions from a lot of folks. It's like, hey, how's it going? What were the things that you're doing? What are you guys developing? How are you thinking about this? And a lot of interest from smaller companies as well coming in and saying, well, hey, can we partner, or can we find something together? Right. So we're actually seeing that happening right now.
So, Ardis, your point is, and I think I can validate from observation, right, that there's this appetite for private equity to what do I do with this portfolio of investments, right? And then they can turn around an app for another app, right? But your point is that there seems to be a signal of consolidation. So is it fair to say that the super app emerges, right? That, oh my gosh, now I can have this investment with this investment, and that cross-functional view on campus or on systems is attainable, and is the point that AI is the catalyst for that unifying factor between the different verticals or apps. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
So the super app doesn't exist, right? And you can think about it. The financial component is one thing. So financial engineering of how do you put multiple of these companies together and then have a new company come up. Now the integration is going to be really important. And that's what's
Sure,
happening in the
sure.
market, is like, how do you put these companies together and then have something that's cohesive? It has not worked out in higher ed for a long time. And we have decided at Element to basically think about our platform as one unified platform and build more and more and more of those kind of components and put them into our platform. So the experience is all together and we don't have to worry about, kind of acquiring something and bolting it on or having, this like three different platforms that our clients are confused about which one do they use or what version and so on and so forth. So the super platform has not emerged. And no matter how many times the financial engineering and folks in PE or VC, like they have been trying to put these companies together, that hasn't worked. And as a matter of fact, like we're seeing right now, I think a couple of months ago, we saw Gravity being formed, which is a combination of three companies, right? That owned by K1. So Ocelot, IB, and I believe a smaller one was Gravity. So they're now under the same umbrella of Gravity. But we're going to see a lot more of that, right? I don't know if that's going to be successful or not. Putting all those pieces together and kind of getting the super app. What I believe is the better approach is how can we kind of build on one larger platform and keep expanding that because the data is really, really important.
So I think what you're saying, right? And I don't think I disagree, right? But it is there's two plays, right? This my example in the super app is this idea that I can have three or four companies, the Gravity example, right? And then through funding, let's make them work, let's integrate them, and they kind of give you the feeling of now we touch multiple verticals, right? And then we do it all. But your point is that also funding, it's allowing us elements of the world to basically start moving in different parts of the student life cycle,
Yeah.
different parts of the administrative cycle, not only doing, let's say, university administration, but we can do academics and research and whatnot. And that, I want to use the word organic growth, but that strategic growth and market expansion would give us not the super app, but a more enterprise wide view of these applications, right? And this is what we know that higher education and educational systems do not have at the moment. So K-12, they don't have a system that rules them all, right? The classical joke that we have if you work in a university or in a system is that your ERP or SIS works for finance, but it hardly works for the registrar's office or financial aid or the student centers. All these different units really struggle because the SIS, in a way, it's more of an ERP version, and it falls short of all the different applications or apps that is needed to provide student experiences and educations at the next level, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the money's flowing, particularly towards practical applied AI solutions that are solving like this real problems or again boost efficiency right now. Consolidation is reshaping this landscape as we see it, and you see investors are betting on AI to finally unlock kind of this greater scale in that tech market. So AI can be an enabler for achieving that greater scale, that 20 billion plus, market where we are. And we're seeing AI as the driver for that.
AI is the unifying factor. I'm just very happy that we're in the right side of that equation, right? And one of the things I love to have a conversation about is looking at the future and like, okay, how do we see all these things coming together, artists? But I think that many, you and I and our listeners, you would probably right now have reached a point that you see this is the real deal, AI, and this is a mimic of someone put the AI on their basically their marketing, but it's the same business intelligence, dashboard and type of thing. So if the advancement of AI is so significant that you're not doing AI, I think it's a really simple thing to do. So from the money flows to the shopping behavior and how the leaders that I see attending these sessions, they get it and is excited that Element, you, I, and everyone in our partnership, we're all on the right side of the equation. So looking ahead, my friend, looking ahead, where is this going?
Well, I mean, we can kind of do a recap, but you're seeing that all the discussions that are converging around ASU with GSV, the thought leaders are really grappling with this profound implications of AI. Like how does this transform teaching? How does it ensure equity? How does it prepare this workforce? And the business trends reflect the mechanics of the transformation, right? So you think about where the investment is flowing, like what kind of companies, what kind of solutions are driving that innovation in the classroom. They're not coming from internally on the institutional side. It's actually coming in from outside in, and kind of the investment community are thinking about how those companies are positioning themselves and drive the scalable, efficient solutions, right? So it's all about productivity, efficiency. How do you take systems today, systems of record, and kind of scale them in mass to personalize the experiences, to personalize kind of learning at scale. So when you think about it, there is, you bridging that gap of truly successful AI integration that seems to require both a strategic and human-centered vision, right? And you think about like those leaders that we just mentioned, like Mitchell and LeBlanc, and the market viability sought by investors, meaning like how can you kind of connect and bridge that gap between small to like how do you invest in something that's going to be really, really big, but stay small and the possibility small. So it's not just enough for AI to be powerful, right? It just needs to improve the outcomes so it fits this new business model, right, that we're talking about. But there's really a tension that exists today between this desire for rapid AI adoption and the real world barriers. So we talked about that. The faculty readiness, data infrastructure, policy, like you can see that people talking about some of those things. And you mentioned the CIC presidents coming in and saying, hey, we're beyond that, or now we need to see the ROI. But still, the folks on campus, they're not ready. 17% of faculty members even being ready to kind of teach in this new world, or even we're seeing it from the adoption on the administrative side as well. It's just not there right now. So things are moving really, really fast on the technology side, but the adoption is really slow. So there you see that tension kind of persist here. And then again, when you think about kind of where the looking ahead and we should start thinking about the focus, it becomes really clear that data is a competitive advantage. We talked about data in the past around how do the ML or the AI, the first AI wave, right? Where it's like all about how do you do ML models and so on and so forth. But now it's even more important, right? So data, better data management, better data governance, potentially collaborating efforts. Like how do you bring data to the forefront, and how use that context and those systems in order for the AI to make better decisions and to provide personalization. So that is, again, the focus is coming back around that as these models get better and better and they can reason better. You need to provide it. They need to sit on top of this agentic data or the sources that these agentic systems can use, right? Really large, structured and unstructured data as well. And then we talked about like people are saying, hey, we're not early adopters. We need proof. We need proof. And it's like we need to move beyond the hype. And I mentioned that the reason why there's no adoption is because there's just no proof yet, and the tools aren't there just yet, right? So how do we move? Like, how do we become like better buyers, right? And outcome-based contracts will likely intensify in the future. So we remember, JC, when we talked like in the past, I've talked about how do you deploy AI and how do you think about the outcome of AI, right? It's like you can think about it around improving efficiency, or you can think about it, what is going to be the measurement of this effect of these new tools. So now you can pay for outcomes, right? And that's kind of how we're gonna think about this part. And the last part that I want to mention is there's going to need to be a continued investment in tools that integrate AI practically, rather than keep talking about hallucinations and you know this really high level conversations that when you implement it, like it doesn't really reflect the reality, right? And then last but not least, the workforce alignment. It's like, okay, higher education, it's like, what are we teaching these kids? How is this affecting when they're coming out of college? How's the workforce, like how does it align? Like, will we remain kind of a dormant driver of AI adoption and curriculum change, or can that workforce non-traditional four-year degree or non-traditional kind of education drive this institutions to move a lot quicker in adopting AI in their curriculum and how they're doing things, and also teaching students kind of for this new world as well.
Look, Ardis, most of the sophisticated partners that we see, most of the sophisticated systems, whether you're in K-12 or higher education, I see they have a common denominator that is called the cross-functional stakeholder, or the committee that does AI, because we know that AI has a cross-functional play. It integrates teams, removes silos. So that's sophistication, and they're trying to understand the use cases and whatnot. With all the important things you just mentioned, what I saw in ASU, what I see funding driving, where I see technology and funding kind of always leading, it's that the pressure is now coming on AI literacy. And I really think that it's a very simple play. For me, connecting the dots is higher education, educational systems, K-12 really need to, and these basically cross-functional teams, call it the AI cabinet or whatever you call it at
Yeah,
home,
yeah, yeah,
they need to be making that leap of how do I educate my leaders, my stakeholders, because without it, they won't be able to do this outcome-based type of shopping behavior. Artists, your point is so on the money. We used to buy technology based on the use case. AI will be transforming campuses, schools, because it does the outcomes. And the other part that I see in terms of connecting the dots, it's there will be a significant number of failed AI projects, which is perfectly fine. And how are campuses and school systems going to be reacting to these failures? I really hope that in the right way, because it's not about you and I know that the rate of success of this project is not one to one. You don't do a project and it's always successful, right? So the failure becomes the foundation of this very successful initiative that emerges from the things that didn't work. 20 years ago, when there was digital transformation through online systems, cloud and whatnot, a ton of things that didn't work. But today we use those learnings as a foundation that has allowed AI or predictive analytics, this type of waves of AI they just mentioned, to flourish. So to recap, yes, yes, yes to everything that you say, plus a gigantic emphasis on AI literacy and training. I know it's happening. I'm going to see the complementaries coming more. And also the reporting of this thing failed, AI, University XYZ, School XYZ loses $3 million or whatever number of projects, and the rinse and repeat. I'm really excited about that. I really hope that we just don't get emotional on it, because the opportunity is important as we see it. The opportunity is here, right? And we just haven't been where we are today in terms of what technology enablement allows us to do as it relates to the student experience, the administrator, and the teaching human capital that is needed, right?
we went into a little bit of prophesizing here at the end, but
Oh,
I feel like ASU GSV really gave us some great ideas, and we thought like, hey, let's just put together some thought leadership as well. So this is really good, JT. I really it kind of like we went a little bit longer, but I feel like we had a lot to unpack here from ASU GSV, and how like it's the ASU GSV is like the Davos of higher education. It's called the Davos of higher education, or the Coachella of higher ed, or whatever you want to call
oh my gosh, I made it, artist. I made it then.
it. You made it. But we had a lot of really good conversations. So a lot of thought leadership in there. A lot of leaders were
Yes,
there
yes.
focusing on, and AI was at the center of everything. And of
And
course,
the fish
element.
tacos as well. And the fish tacos, amazing.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks for finding those dives. It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
Well, till next time, everybody. Hope you enjoy and take some of these insights back to your campuses and back to your institutions as well.
Thank you, everybody.
Generation AI is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you're going to like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing weekly, and we've got a wide range of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed leaders and professionals like you find their next big idea. They feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts, like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Jenny Lee Fowler, Brian Gross, and many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform that's helping institutions all over the country create meaningful, personalized, and engaging connections with their prospects and students. Learn more at element451.com.